Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Capes and Lunatics. It's me, Phil, and I'm here once again. I've been lucky to have last couple episodes, a lot of great interviews, and this one is going to be no exception. So I am here with Mitch and Nick from the Saints 2 Awakening and a new creator-owned comic. I want you guys to give us the story. What's going on? How did this whole journey begin?
You bet. Yeah, the Saints 2 Awakening. So that's a project that Nick and myself and our team at Allegiance Arts has produced and is live right now on Indiegogo. I think it has another 44 or so days remaining to fund. I think we raised $6,600 on this with over 176 backers, which is pretty good these days. And it's a very exciting project with a lot of premier creators on it, including Mike Barron, Butch Geis, and I can't sing the praises of artist Christian Rosado enough. He's a Peruvian illustrator that handles the interior artwork for the book. Just phenomenal. He draws, inks, and colors the whole thing. Mike and Nick and myself were the writers of the series. And it's the fifth title in the Allegiance Arts lineup, and represents the very best that we have to offer. Everything we've learned about crowdfunding and making comic books and making great stories over all of our respective careers has culminated in this project. Just to lay it all out there for you.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but just the art I've seen it looks beautiful, and I saw the names Mike Barron and I saw Butch's name on there. I was like, oh, they got some heavy hitters. So, I mean, this is really something that's we need to check out. But we were just talking before you jumped on, Mitch. It's like I was saying, it's such a great time for like comics, especially like the creator owned stuff. But it seems like it might be like really hard just because everywhere I look online, it seems like so many people are like trying to jump into the pool. So but probably the hardest thing is getting the word out there, right?
100%, which is why we really appreciate being on your program, Phil, and everybody else that's hosted us and talked about the Saints too and everything else that we're doing. Greatly appreciated. It is very hard. That's a very astute observation. It is awesome to see so many independent comic books and creators making their way in the independent space, because you get a lot of creativity, but it also makes it harder and harder to get your own stuff out there in front of a lot of different eyeballs. But for a book like the Saints, like you notice, we have premier creators on this, and when we sit down and to craft this book from storyline all the way to the execution, the design, the art, all the way, Nick and I are writing and creating and producing as if we're playing for an audience of 1 million eyeballs, right? I mean, that's what this book represents to us. It's a big swing for the fences in terms of story and art and craftsmanship. And I think that's where it starts, right? If your product can pass that test, then that opens the gateway to a much larger audience down the road.
Mm-hmm. And before we even like get into the book further, like tell me about Allegiance Arts. I mean, this is the first I've been hearing about you guys, and I'm very intrigued. So, how did you guys start? What do you guys what's all in the hopper there?
So it was founded by my wife and myself. My wife, Elizabeth Breitweiser, who's an Eisner-nominated color artist and very well known as a color artist for Batman and Captain America and many other books. And I was an illustrator for a number of years at Marvel, DC, and pretty much all the big guys. Did my time at all of them and did a lot of Captain America work and Drax the Destroyer, Fantastic Four, a lot of different things. In 2018, we decided it was time to basically do our own thing, right? So we've been preparing this for a long time, storylines and drawings, and just thinking about how we would approach the marketplace with our own intellectual properties. And in 2018, we launched Red Rooster, which was my creator-owned project as a crowdfunding book that raised over 50 grand in its first day. It was a huge success in regards to comic book crowdfunding. And as soon as that happened, my phone started ringing, as one might expect. It's like, oh, well, this guy's out there making waves. So within 3.5 months of launch of that campaign, my wife and I found ourselves pitching Walmart on a startup comic book venture featuring some of the original IPs with some of the most well-known talent available, working in comics these days. And so we put together a pitch for them, and then spent all of 19 and half of 20 getting these things together, launching into the book section at Walmart with our 4 debut titles: Red Rooster, The Futurists, Bass Reeves, and Nora's Saga. And did that for a year or so, launching into their books department on end cap displays into 3,384 Walmart stores for a year or we were the widest. We were for a good number of months, year and a half or so, 2 years, the widest distributed comic book company in the world. And then those were we launched those 4 debut titles into Walmart, and The Saints is sort of our follow-up. Since then, we've had our distributor, not Walmart's been great, but our distributor was not ready for this kind of space and execution, as you might expect. So in retrospect, not the perfect partner as far as distribution goes, but here we are with some amazing titles. We get to work with that led us to a guy like Nick, who comes from a background in film and television. He came on as our editor-in-chief. When was that, Nick?
It was June of 21.
Yeah.
I started working for them in April of 21. I started off writing a title. Mitch wanted to do like I guess a graphic novel of the Red Rooster's origin story, but it would follow several centuries and how one gets the mantle of the rooster. And so we started to work together, and we worked well. And sure enough, their editor-in-chief was departing for greener pastures. And Mitch goes, "So, do you want the job?" And I went, "Hell yeah." And it was kind of, that's a truncated version of it.
Yeah, very much.
One of those, God, I was afraid you'd never ask moments. But I tried to play it cool, but inside I was acting like a teenage girl on her first date, to be honest with you. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And we were happy to have Nick too, and he's brought a lot to the company. Definitely made our books better, and has made me a better storyteller through his learning from his years of experience in film and television.
Yeah, I could say the same. I have told this story so many times. I think if anyone's watching or they must be tired of it. I write the comic scripts like a film script. But the problem is, like, I would have Ben walks through a room, drinks a glass of water, smacks his roommate for talking too loud. So I would turn that in. Mitch is like, "Yeah, Nick, there's something called beats." I go, "Nah, man, I know beats. We're talking about beats." He goes, No. You realize the characters don't walk through the panel, right? Those things have to be broken down. I went, "Oh yeah." I didn't think about it. It only happened once, and then over time it became less, meaning I started to see it. And even now, like, sometimes I'm like, "Oh, damn, we need that beat," and we talk about it. Like, how does one? Mitch was saying the other day, because we're doing some rewrites on something, dialogue, he kept talking about the problem of real estate in comics. And that got me to think of, how does one visually tell the story in a high impact way where the reader can assimilate the information as quickly as possible without dumbing it down? And sometimes you just have to be very direct. And we have certain rules, like we don't have we watch the captions. The captions are at a minimum, and we don't have thought bubbles. So you've removed these two things that often people use as devices to explain things they didn't tell in the story. And I like obstacles because that forces one to be creative and get out of that. Whereas if you give yourself an out, you'll take an out. Everyone does this, but creatively it forces you. I find problems to be interesting to solve like that.
I mean, you're probably the guy to ask, Nick. I've heard, tell me if this is true, I mean, I'm sure your background probably helps, but like writing comics is like its own animal. It's like it's way different than writing like a TV or a movie script.
I'll be honest, I didn't find it that way, but keep in mind, I
Oh,
didn't have a frame of reference before this job.
okay.
I mean, like Mike Barron's been writing comic books for God knows how long.
Oh yeah.
But what I did notice was the format was like some people will do like page one at the top, and they'll have 1, 1. You think it's a fraction, but it's page 1, panel 1.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 1, 3. And I just found that for me just not intuitive. And so I just started to do it in script format and break it down like you'll see panel 1, panel 2. It I'd have to show it to you, but then like I'm like busting my NDA here. But that's how I did it, because honestly that was organic to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just easier. I wasn't trying to break any rules. There was no thought to this, Phil, other than, well, I need to write it what works for me. Otherwise, I'm going to have a difficult time.
Yeah. And what's dramatic is dramatic. What is conflict is conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times I think working, especially with Nick, well, writing has always been an editing process for me personally. And I mean, as Nick and I work together or with others, it's been no different. There's moments where you write, I mean, almost every page is nearly overwritten. And then we'll go sit down and like digest it. And then somewhere in panel 3 or in panel 4, that's the dialogue. That's okay. We're going to take that dialogue. We're going to move it to panel 1. And then all of a sudden, this page is just going to click and click and click and go. And then you've got conflict and the turn, and then the hook at the end to get you to turn the page. And then it all falls into place. So it's like I said, it's managing the real estate. It's a real estate problem in comic books. I bring that up all the time. And so you have this limited amount of space, which is a limited number of shapes that both the artist can draw and that the reader can perceive very quickly. So within that constraint of page size, reader psychology, and artist like capacity, you have to. There's only so much you can do with that, and those constraints, in most cases, really help each scene that we work on, because then we're able to trim lots of fat. We're able to get rid of exposition through dialogue. That all goes. That's the first thing that goes in our book.
Oh God!
So that's the first thing that goes.
You'll hear, if you were to overhear us in a room, it would be funny because, like, for example, you'll hear like, "Oh, exposition through dialogue." It's painful, and I'm not trying to out anybody, but it's an easy trap to fall in. It really is, and sometimes you have to do it. You'll hear that. You'll hear, "Where's the turn? Where's the turn?" Like, because we have it is a rule. There has to be a conflict in every page that sends a story forward, or there could be some character development. But if the story is just two people in a room talking about nothing, or they're on a boat or in a plane or whatever, and it's just yammer, 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 the opportunity has to be there to either learn something about the character, let the characters relate to each other, and it does have to be intrinsic to the story. If it's not germane to the story, it chucks. And sometimes we've chucked some things that we both loved, but the truth of the matter is it did not progress anything forward. And that's when Dorothy Parker's edict of "you have to kill your children." And no, I'm not advocating killing your children, is important. And you got to be disciplined.
And you know what I
hard
found?
On ourselves.
You know what I found since as we evolved through this the method that we're using to approach this medium is, when you do all that, you now have in 22 or 24 pages what would have taken 30 pages to achieve, or at least 26 or 28. We're packing a lot of story, especially into the Saints book, which is the one we're here, tonight to talk about. So I definitely would urge people to go check it out. Go over on Indiegogo, the Saints, or search Allegiance Arts. We have a number of campaigns that we've run in the past, so we're experienced campaigners. Check out the work. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck. So like I said, we're packing a lot of story craft into well, what's available here is up to 96 pages of story if you buy volume 1 and volume 2 together. So if you're new to the Saints, as most of your audience may be, you can also grab volume 1 and have all 96 pages of amazing story content. But the price of admission, in my opinion, is worth it for Christian Rosado's artwork. A lot of people have not heard of Christian Rosado. They're going to. He's a young gentleman out of Peru who is an absolute mega talent. My wife stumbled upon him when we were just talking about the Saints as a project we might greenlight, and then from there it's been beautiful ever since. A true professional guy that gets his work done. He works hard and delivers.
Yeah.
So
Actually, we just did his first English live stream. Actually, it's the first English interview with us on our YouTube channel Tuesday, right?
Yeah, so go check out his work, and you'll fall in love with the work, and then go check to the Allegiance Arts YouTube channel, and you can learn more about Christian and his life in Peru and his approach to artwork and his philosophies around creating art. He's a very disciplined guy. A lot of young artists can learn from him.
That's probably, I mean, the internet's probably opened up comics so much, like decades ago, you're probably like just restricted by, people in the general area, or, hey, say someone out of state might be able to mail you stuff. Now with the internet, I mean, you could have anyone anywhere in the world just send like emailing you stuff, right? And just like you said, I mean, any country, I mean, pretty much find your artists, writers anywhere.
We are approached from people from all over the world, like from Malaysia to Peru and everything in between.
Yeah, we get submissions actually every day. Every day I'm looking at art on my phone, even if I have to. We're not a large company by any stretch of the imagination. We don't have a massive floor in Madison Avenue. We're a small crew. And so everyone has to wear many hats, no pun intended. And so we all look at art. Sometimes I'll come through the submission on a personal email, or sometimes I'll come through our information box, info@allegiancearts.com. And we go through it. And if we see something, we tag it or we reach out. And, it's the surprise of finding someone new and interesting that's always, I think, a treat for everyone. And Christian, I know, for the Breitweisers, I hadn't met him or dealt with him until I showed up. Matter of fact, the first campaign I worked on was the first Allegiance book, and so that discovery must have been a hell of a find, because everyone is blown away by him. If we could show some of his work, if you don't mind me hijacking your live stream here.
Oh, no. I mean,
it'd be great, because it's hard for people to appreciate it unless they see it. And I'd like to say that, Mitch is too modest to bring it up, but I'll bring it up. That cover is aces. And I think the price of admission is worth the cover that he and Butch Geist did.
Again, I don't know a lot of the story, but just the art I've seen, the previous stuff. If I saw this on a shelf, I'd be like, I'm going to check that. I have to at least buy this first one. I have to check it out. I know visually it's selling the story for me.
Yeah, I mean, the old adage of don't judge a book by its cover, I think, is thrown out the window with this. You should just go buy it, because it's the pips, man.
I did take the liberty of sharing that tab, my Google Chrome tab of the campaign.
Oh, yes, here we go.
In case your YouTube folks want to get a visual of just what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So there is, that's the video. That's obviously the campaign header. Marked for death, a renegade archaeologist uncovers the arcane machinations of an underworld cabal. That is our really quick tagline for this, or pitch copy for this one.
Oh,
you can see some snippets of Christian's artwork. Those are the villains. Again, this is just very dramatic, and his characters are very expressive. They act. This is what we call it. The drawings act, which does so much of the work for us.
Yeah, his work is, I use the word athletic. It's
great.
always dynamic. There's the cover.
That's
I
the cover
mean,
by Butch and myself.
dude, that
Butch
is a
inked it,
movie poster.
Oh yeah.
and I had the good fortune to color this one. And again, on the right hand side here, you can see all the options. This is the featured perk for $30, volume 1 and volume 2. Like I said, 96 pages. It's a lot of bang for your buck as far as comic books go. The book is complete, by the way. So this is not always the case, and in fact, it's usually rarely the case in terms of crowdfunding campaigns. You're lucky if they're over halfway done. This book is actually fully lettered, compiled end to end, and ready to go to the printer. So this is essentially a pre-order for this, and we are excited to get this one done and out and to customers as quickly as possible so that we can get to volume 3, because we are just very excited to keep delivering on this book.
Yeah.
We put a lot of work into this, and Christian has already illustrated half of the next volume. So we're anxious to get this one done, packaged, and into people's hands, let them enjoy it, and then let them come back for volume 3 before the end of the year. That's the plan.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, those covers do look like movie posters. I would hang those on my wall. Yeah.
Well, that's part of the reason why writing in script format and stuff was so important, because when we talked about this, and again, I'm not saying in lieu of writing for comics or writing it as a comic, we wanted it to have the appearance of cinema. Because I think if you look at today, people are more image driven than they are word driven. Yeah. And an audience will gravitate towards arresting images, things that are compelling. They draw you in. So when you see like a word balloon that's that big on a page and it's filled up, or there's pages full of words, and I'm a wordsmith, but I also know people after a while like, oh man. So like my scripts, the description is no more than 3 lines, because I don't want them to become inundated with too much description, and I want the artist to be able to interpret what they read. And that's something that's developed over time. You have to be disciplined and get to that place, and it took me a long time to get to that place. But if you look at what Christian has done here, every frame, the most important information is shown, and it's shown in a very dramatic and cinematic way, and you can't help but ask yourself, what is going on? I want to know more. Tell me more. Mm-hmm. And that's not written in the script. That's why I'm bringing all this up. Yes, the story's there, but it's how he interprets it that is not written in the script. And he's always given us better than what's written.
It sounds like you're getting, like, I've talked to a few creators. It sounds like you've hit the thing that seems like it gives you success to me, where it's like, you send the script to the artist and they're just like, you know what I envisioned was pretty great, but what you get back is even like a step or 2 above. You're just like, well, wow, he really took it and elevated it. Yeah.
That's exactly. Yeah. It's like touching the stars.
Yeah.
And putting some in your pocket and being like, wow, I cannot believe that happened. Like, this is a rare moment. It sounds like you were quite aware, Phil, at these types of partnerships are actually very rare, where you can deliver. Nick and I worked very hard, along with Mike and the rest of our team, to give Christian an awesome script, one that we said, we are proud of this, and sent it off, and then to get it back, and he's elevated it on every page without fail. The characters act exactly or better than we saw them in our imaginations. It's a rare thing, and I'm glad that you see it and appreciate it. And I know a lot of comic book fans in the audience will also kind of understand that it's like it's a mythical beast, and it's certainly been an honor to make this book with such great talent.
Yeah, it seems like you guys have the balancing act, because that's where you get classic runs. Like, the writing and the art both have to be good and elevate each other. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I haven't read it, but yes, the art, I can see, like, looks like a movie trailer. These panels, that's
awesome.
Another thing I've expressed is that if you didn't have the dialogue, you could take Christian's panels and treat them like a film storyboard.
Yeah.
They're that well connected. You're not going to come back and go, well, where's that moment? What is this? Sometimes you'll look at some art and it's like, well, there's a beat missing. We don't know what this character's doing. I think in the time we've been working with him, that's only happened maybe once or twice. And part of it is that we didn't write it well, because Christian does layouts, and not everybody loves layouts, but the layouts are so crucial because honestly, that keeps us in check.
Mm-hmm.
You have a great idea in your brain, you put it on paper, and you're like, wee, and then you look at the layout, and you're like, oh man, what was I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
But again, I mean, that's a sign of a good team where, like, the artist catches the writer or vice versa, and, and work it out, and you just spin gold out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but you guys did send me all the links, to the website, social media. I'll put that in all the show notes. So yes, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening on the podcast, yeah, look in the show notes. It will be, all the links will be in the show notes. So
we have a motto: best idea wins, and that's what you go with. And sometimes it takes a little back and forth to like get there. So like you'll hear, like I'll write something down because sometimes we're on Zoom and I'll go ba da da da, and Mitch will go ba da da da. I'm like, no, better, that's better, and then we go with what he presented. That's what I'm saying. It's like two madmen talking sometimes.
Yeah, very, very, very much so, and it can be occasionally a frustrating process, right? But I don't know that we've never not had a meeting, Nick, with you or myself, or with any of our partners that we've worked with that hasn't been some kind of gold was dug out of the ground.
Absolutely. That's 100%. And
if you're working with people that will check their egos at the door and adopt that philosophy of best idea wins, and when you hit it, like everybody knows, you might be holding on to whatever thing that you thought was going to be cool, but when the guy or gal says, well, what about this? That's it. And so we've been fortunate to work with people that have that spirit, and that's helped us to produce some really amazing comic book moments for all of our projects.
Yeah. Usually when it hits, it's rare you don't know. And that's not magic. That's just, I think, an instinctive thing.
Very much so.
A story I love to tell is we were working on Nora's out, so I'm not giving anything away. In one of the episodes of Nora's saga, the Fostergrim has a song. So the song opens up this portal, if you will. And so we're sitting there, and we were up in the offices up in Arkansas, and I just said, well, the song is like great, but shouldn't it like impact these like Viking horde? And we're just talking, and out of nowhere, Mitch goes, what if they fall asleep? What if this incantation, the song, puts them to sleep? And you knew that's it. And the story took on this other life. Just what maybe it was
like a small thing, but it was actually a device that fixed a couple of major story problems. Right? It gave we were looking to give a character a particular spotlight because that was missing in the original draft, and that moment that was born out of like the three of us. That was me and Kelsey and Nick just banging our heads together, and eventually it's like somebody's brains fell out and landed on a good idea. But you find those moments.
And sometimes that happens where someone will say something you think is daft coming out of your mouth, and the other guy goes, no, that's good. And like, really? And like, yeah. And then you start to piece it together so it fits. And then the logic of it makes sense. And then you run with that. With that idea of putting the Viking horde to sleep, it did solve many problems, but it also opened up the story to a way that it hadn't had before. It gave it a broader scope in a weird way, because what our main characters were doing impacted others and was able to include a character who, frankly, he needed some development. You know, he needed to have his moment of being a hero. And that one comment just set that in motion. And if you're working with people, and honestly, we've never had like any cross arguments because it's best idea wins. You find those moments a lot more than you might think.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Oh yeah.
just my opinion.
That's, I mean, just from the outside looking in, and the people I've talked to, that seems like the key to success when there's not all that back and forth, and it's not just one person saying, "Okay, this is my project. We're going to do this my way." And no, you get a room of talented people when people are just free to share ideas. Yeah, that's again, that's where you get the classics, right?
Agreed.
All right. I see the like the one sentence description for the Saints 2. Can you tell me anything more about the Saints 2 that's not in the description? Something
Yeah,
that
yeah,
tease us even more.
absolutely. I'll put here up on the screen our longer pitch, but let me go back to our volume 1, back to because this is volume 2, right? So
Oh, yeah.
let me set the stage for volume 1. So volume 1 follows this our same hero, Jean-Marc Lapointe, who, for all intents and purposes, is a glory hound, social media driven archaeologist. So if you imagine Jake Paul has a baby with Indiana Jones, you might get Jean-Marc Lapointe. I mean, he's kind of an ass. He's a pariah to the establishment of the scientific community, and he is a bit of a glory hound, but he is a scientist and is in pursuit of the truth. And no matter how shocking his antics might be or his playboy ways, you know, he has a couple million followers on Yip Yap, which is our TikTok, or we call it Yip Yap, or whatever it is. It's our world social media thing, and writes best-selling books. But yeah, anyway, episode 1 picks this character up kind of at the height of his fame, and he's on the cusp of a discovery that would not only make his own mark on the world, but also rewrite world history in a major way. And in this process, which is all the setup to the book, he pisses off the people that would very much like for this to remain a secret, right? And essentially, they set him up, and then he becomes he goes from international. Well, he becomes a true international pariah. He becomes wanted by Interpol. They really kind of wreck his life, and you watch this very combustible character go through losing everything essentially, and having all of his friends, what little he actually has, of real friends, their lives become affected by this too. And he begins to, through his eyes, the reader begins to fall down the rabbit hole of essentially a shadowy underworld of archaeology and murder and manipulation, and that's the setup for the book. We follow that into volume 2, where he meets the Saints, which is the namesake of the book, which is a clandestine noble organization, shadow organization that is trying to stop the actual evil shadow organization who sabotaged Jean-Marc and is threatening our reality, I guess, would be the stakes. So that is our pitch. That's our hero. We love the hero. In fact, the hero and the desire to do something that was adventure based and kind of had our penchant for archaeology in the past and history, and bring that into a very contemporary, exciting space. That and this main character we had carved out that we really kind of fell in love with was what created this book, and the concept and the story that flowered out from that.
Yeah, the rabbit hole has one hell of a drop. Let me just say and like an onion, we keep peeling it back. And Jean-Marc goes from a very self-serving individual to someone who actually becomes part of something bigger than himself, and for a cause much greater than himself. And he's forced to change. It's not like a decision. The pressure is put on him to change, he has no choice. And, you know, some people may have a problem with that, but it's the necessity to live. And
some of the funnest things about
yeah.
creating this book was once you started from this character and started peeling his life apart. You have to have secondary characters, supporting actors, supporting characters, and as we, you know, they kind of came in as needed, right? I mean, it's like, oh, we need somebody who's his lifeline to academia. Well, they're in a B story, the love story, right, or at least a B story character, and there comes Rachel Brewer, who is this sort of more staid and contemporary academic who may or may not have some complicated love entanglement with Jean-Marc in the past, but who's been invited to his new dig and understands he's reckless but can't quite let him go, you know. And then her life becomes, you know, wrapped up into his chaos, and her life is dramatically affected. And then as she falls through the rabbit hole herself in her own way, and I don't want to give too much about the story, but writing her character has been a lot of fun, and following it has been a lot of fun. She needs friends, right? And then comes you know, her publisher Collins, who's going to write her, you know, her best-selling book about, you know, the life of Jean-Marc and his discoveries. Then he gets pulled into it, and then everything that. It's a story where everybody that's touched by these characters, they're pulled in, even down to what's the Kevin Bacon game? Like 6 degrees from Kevin
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
It's just like 6 degrees of Jean-Marc. I mean, you can be 4 to 5 degrees of Jean-Marc, and you get wrapped up into what he's set off, and your life is going to explode. So, and that happens to a number of characters as we introduce them. And so creating this world where the fallout can affect so many characters, and through the eyes and the lenses of those characters, the reader begins to learn new information in a different way. So we're exploring this like a diamond. You want to go all the way around it and see all its facets, and you do that through the eyes or the lenses of other characters.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. We purposely write in a change of perspective so that you can see how the decisions of one individual impact so many others. The way I described it recently on another podcast was these characters get sort of hoovered up into this world, whether they like it or not, and it's how do they deal with it. And generally speaking, when you apply pressure to your characters, you'll find what they're made of.
Yeah.
So is this the example of, you know, you start writing the character and then this character starts writing himself?
You know,
I think that's a good question. We do beats. Let's not, you know, some people, I know people like, oh, I just let it flow. That's lovely. We do have beats, and we know, because remember, we're going from episode to episode to episode.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be honest, and that keeps us honest. But it doesn't mean things don't develop. Like things I can't talk about because they haven't been published yet. I'm driving up to Arkansas, and Mitch calls me up. He goes, "What do you think about this? We hadn't thought about this." It's okay. I'm driving during one of the worst storms in like December. It's not snowing, but it's pissing rain. I could barely see anything. Windshield wiping. It's at night. And he just said, "What do you think of this?" And I'm like, "That's it. That's it." Now we had to sit on that idea for a while and develop it. What does that mean? How does that develop? How does that relate to the real world? Do we alter the real world too much? Or is this just the conceit of the world we're creating? So we don't just do this capriciously. We talk about it. And then the characters, I wouldn't say write themselves, but things come to you. But that's how we work. Like sometimes, he'll just come up with an idea, or I'll come up with an idea, and we're like, that's it. I wish there was a way I could teach that, but you can't.
I guess not that the character writes itself, but maybe it's just
They do express.
you know the character so well at this point. You know, if someone throws something out, you're like, oh yeah, he would definitely do that, or oh no, he would never do that.
We do talk about that a lot.
It does happen. Like in the latest episode that we wrote, I think this is the finale of what we call season 1. So this will be volume 3. And in the finale, of course, you want to give your hero, Jean-Marc Lapointe in this case, an awesome, like the defining scene for him, right? It's the finale of the season. He's had several great moments, but this one's got a really, really kick. And in the case of what happens in the end of volume 3, we couldn't have written that scene that we did, Nick, that we love.
Yeah.
And we cannot wait to show people. We
can't show anyone.
We can't say anything about it, but we could not have written a scene like that without knowing this character as well as we do for this many episodes, for this many issues.
That's true. 100%.
The scene could not have manifested out of the gate on episode 1. There's no way. You know, we had to live in this world and live with this character for this scene to manifest the way it did. So to your point, yes, you're very true. It allows us to. They don't maybe write themselves, but it does allow us to unlock things that weren't possible before with that character.
That's the best way to say it. I mean, because to be honest, and it's no knock against anyone, we felt that this very braggadocious, annoying guy was lacking in some humor. And so I started to interject, like, as if Ryan Reynolds would play him. That sort of, like, you want to just slap him.
Call me.
Yeah. Deuces. You know, it's like, and that's how I went for it, to be honest with you. He is Canadian, by the way, Jean-Marc. And I'm like, well, let's just go whole hog. And sometimes it had to be pulled back. It's like, Nick, you can't put this in there. And then sometimes, again, someone will say something and we're like, let's go for it. It either lands or it doesn't.
The finale, I threw out a pretty wacky thing, and Nick was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. And then Nick sat down. We sit down together and come up with treatments and ideas, basically kind of settle on, hey, here's what I think we want to do with this episode. And then once we kind of agree, or once we do agree on the treatment process, the overall, the 1,000-foot view of this, Nick will huddle away and go down to the coffee shop or spend his mornings and evenings clickety-clacking away and sketch out some of these scenes a little tighter. And this was a case of where I threw out a kind of a wacky idea. He said, no, it's not. Just hang on to that. And he wanted to play with it, and he did. And he brought something back that was really, really very special. So I'm
and it didn't. And part of the rewriting, that's when a lot of these ideas do come. Like it was played very straight, dramatic, and it was okay. I mean, it got the point across, but we're all like, and he just went, what about this? And I'm like, yeah, it's nuts, but we knew it's right. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you got to take some risks. And
this was a risk. Yeah, for sure.
And knowing the characters and understanding the story and how far you want to take it like a rubber band, I think there is freedom in that. That to me is where the freedom in the writing is. You have a framework, you have a system, and how far can you go? Paul Thomas Anderson, a filmmaker I really love, says writing is like ironing. And I actually agree with that. We had to massage this script a lot because I have a tendency to every page had 8 panels. He's like, Nick, come on, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Just scale it back. But we didn't lose anything because we found an economical way to discuss. So that's the thing. That's why it's important to have someone who will keep you on track. Because there's a way to get what you want. You can get what you want. But there has to be an economic way of doing it so that everyone's satisfied. I think the episode 6 is probably our most satisfying. Not because it's the newest one, it's because we both pushed ourselves to get it to where we both went, all right, we can walk away now. And it was hard fought. They're not always easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, again, I'm no writer, but I mean, with a character like this, is it more challenging to write a character like this who's like, oh, he's not the ultimate goody two shoes, he's not a straight up villain, you know, he's a guy. It's like the sense of humor. You want to add the sense of humor to make him likable, but can that go too far or
Boy,
not enough?
Oh, yeah.
It could definitely go too far. I mean, so there was another review. I'll go ahead and name drop here. John's Longbox posted a review of our volume 1 a year ago or so when this came out. He started the review with, I got this book, kind of forgot I backed it on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, and then it arrived in the mail. And, you know, I opened it up and, you know, kind of cool cover, whatever, you know, opened it up, hated the character. Page 1, wasn't crazy about the art. And I'm like, I'm going to get you. And then by page 5, he was like, I love this story. I get it. The character's the lovable rogue. I'm into it. And you know what? The art fits the story perfectly. And then by the end of the book, he said, this should be selling 100,000 copies. And this is the best written crowdfunded project I've ever backed. And so I was just like, thank you very much. You got it. You don't like this guy on page 1. He is not a page 1 lovable, you know, guy.
Nope.
Not the guy you want to be your friend, really.
Nope.
But he's becomes the guy that you need, the hero that's needed for this story. And it's that. So was he harder to write? Not really. I think it made him easier to write because the character had room to grow. Like, he's not Superman where he's lands perfect. You know, he's here perfect. He's always going to be perfect. This is a person with flaws, and with flaws, you can create conflict, and that makes it fun. With the kind of extreme personality that this character has, makes writing humor beats fun. It could have gone way too far, and we definitely pulled some things back. So, but you know, that's part of the editing process, you know.
Yeah, to answer your question, is it easier? I think it's more fulfilling for both the writer and the reader if the characters have flaws. One of the reasons why a lot of the IP from comic books that have been translated into film doesn't work. After a while, it's as much as you enjoy the visual effects and the love and the nostalgia attached to the character, there comes a point where there has to be consequences. Mm-hmm. And the one I love to use an example is in Iron Man 3. And I loved Iron Man, don't get me wrong. But poor Gwyneth Paltrow, who's like a $130 dripping wet, is getting bounced around in this metal suit all over this, you know, his house is caving in, his explosions, and her hair is barely messed up. There's no marks on her. She has no bruises. She's got fire coming through her, and nothing happens. And after a while, I'm like, I don't give a damn about Pepper Potts. What's her big thing she's going to face?
She's invulnerable. Yeah. That's what she just says. She's a superpower.
Yeah. So after a while, for me personally, although they're beautifully done, and I'm not knocking the films, unless a character has something that all good drama, from, you know, Euripides to today, from the Greeks to now. All good drama involves the main character or a collection of characters who must face circumstances or a decision that could ultimately result in either their death or the death of someone they love. And you can argue, well, in comic books, you know, or especially the Avengers, the whole world comes. That's cool. You feel that. But after a while, I think you become numb to those consequences. And I think that's where a lot of these films lose me personally. You know, even though, dude, I love Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, I mean, even just like with comics from like the big two, it's like, I don't know. I keep saying I think they kind of lost some of them, like the human aspect of some of their characters, like, you know, lot of the supporting cast. But so, I mean, a book like this is refreshing because it's like, you're going to get a very human character, and you're going to, and again, an original character, you don't know where it's going to go. So it's like, you're not going to get bored because you don't know, I'm sure it's not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely 100% sure everything's going to work out, well in the end. And, just there's going to, every one of his friends is going to make it out alive. So
I think, and it may be in just how the director handled it, but Joe Johnson's installment, I mean, of the Captain America, the first Captain America. I just absolutely love that movie.
yes.
And I think it's because the stakes are so stinking high
Mm-hmm.
in every scene. And Steve Rogers is in it. I mean, he's in it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great, and of course, it's the guy who made the Rocketeer. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. But yeah, you guys got me hooked. I'm going to be looking. I'll be looking up to how to. I think I'm going to have to order this. So
please do. Yes,
I was going to say,
and tell your friends, man. Don't.
Oh,
listen,
yeah.
Anyone who's watching, if you can't pop right now because I know things are tough, tell your friends.
Yes,
tweet it.
Yeah, we need
Instagram
that mouth for this book, for the talent that's involved in it. We have another one that's coming up right after this one. This is a series with legs, and you don't see a whole lot of those popping out of the indie space. You do, but you don't also. So this is like, it is a very rare, like I said earlier, it's touching the stars with this book. And putting a few in your pocket while you're up there, while you have the chance. This is one of those things that is hard fought. The core concept is solid. Nick and I, and along with Mike, worked the hell out of this script. You're going to get a great story, but for the price, and we all know it's art that drives the comic book. You can have a terrible pitch and a terrible story, beautiful art, still going to sell. Well, in this case, you've got a great hero, a killer story that's been worked hard, great cast, but the art, Christian's artwork, I just can't, as an artist myself, I am stunned every time we get a new page of work from him. He colors his own work. Just a phenomenal storyteller, artist. The characters act. He does it with it seems effortless. The way he works and the way he gets the characters to emote exactly they emote like they do in the script and like they do in your imaginations, which, at least in my mind, we're seeing real people move in this space. And when he draws them, they are those people. They have that weight of that gravitas, that emotive sense of line and shadow. It's just a comic book that's really balanced in all the ways that a comic book should be balanced, and that's a very rare achievement. And so I do hope that your listeners will give this one a shot, that your viewers will check it out. I do hope you tell a friend, and that your listeners will tell friends and associates about this project, about Christian's work. Keep your eyes out for his future projects, and get involved with this, and then come back for Saints 3 when we do it later this year.
Yeah, pimp our book out. Feel free.
And again, people, you have no excuse. I'm going to put all the links in the show notes, so it's right down below you. So, all right, but Nick, Mitch, thank you again. This was great. I love talking the inside, behind the scenes stuff of comics. It's, again, I'm no writer, I'm no creative, so I'm just like this. But I've been reading comics since I was 10 years old, so it's just like I love hearing all the what goes into this. I hear the passion you guys have for this, all the detail you guys, the planning sessions. I mean, there's no way this project cannot be good. Again, it looks good, and again, I haven't read it, but it has to be good. Just the love and attention this thing gets. So
awesome. Well, thank you, Phil, for having us on. Thank you for indulging us in our creative masochism on your broadcast. We can certainly do that all night long. So,
all right, everyone. So yes, go pick up Saints 2 Awakening. And again, remember, you were here on the ground floor when this thing gets made into, like, I was going to say a movie, but I think if there's so much detail in this has to be a TV series or something.
Awesome. Call me Ryan Reynolds.
Your mouth to God's ears, man.
I can
all right, we'll make it happen. Thank you so much, Phil.
All right,
Phil.
Thank you.